Hello fellow woodworkers and welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop. This week we're going to be making a ultimate clamp storage. Roll the intro. Okay, so the plan this week is to redo my clamping section because this original unit that I built to put my drills and everything in has got all the clamps attached to it, and to be honest it's just not very practical. I've got some more clamp storage here which is also not very practical. So what I would like to do is create a sort of floor to ceiling unit. In your mind, if you sort of picture a Billy bookcase from IKEA, that sort of thing, with some sort of shelves or sort of rungs like a ladder on the inside, so I can put all of my clamp storage in it. Now it is going to mean investing in a piece of very expensive wood. I've checked the prices online. I think I'm looking at about £45 for a full sheet, a 2.2440 by 1220 sheet of plywood at the moment, which I was buying plywood before COVID, that exact same size, and it was about £32. So it just shows you how much it's gone on. But what I'm going to do is go out, get a sheet now and get it cut down to the dimensions. Now originally the first thing I want to do is not for the storage of these clamps. I'm hoping I'll fit them in, but the priority is my hand clamps. So we'll have a look at how many I've got in a minute and I'll just show you the problem that I've got. But what I'm trying to do is put something up that goes floor to ceiling that I can get all of my hand clamps in so that they're off the floor, because they're all scattered around in different places around the workshop. Then if I can, I'll put these in. The problem I've got with my F clamps and my sash clamps is they're really heavy. These Aldi ones in particular are very, very heavy, each clamp, and I don't want to put too much stress on the wall. So the whole point of this as well, it's going to be sort of backless. I'm not going to have a backing on it because the clamps are going to hang from the shelves. Obviously I've got this piece of wood on the back anyway, which pretty much looks like it's attached to the wall, so that in theory should help. But I'll go and get the wood, get it cut, and then the next thing to do will be to take this down and have a look at the size of space I've got. So let's do that now. All I'm focusing on today are my plastic finger clamps. Now these are essentially in three sizes. I've got this size here, which is 300mm. It says, I think that's referring to the actual jaw clamping size, and this size here, which is 150, which it says is exactly half. So these are the clamps that I want to lose somewhere in the workshop. So apologies in advance for what's going to be a lot of talking in this video. It was actually 2 whole days work this represented, split into 2 videos, and there's no getting around it. So the first thing I did was I unfurled my recently upgraded trolley, and then I bought the pieces of wood, which gave me a heart attack at the checkout buying. And just to let you know, B&Q have put a limit now on 5 free cuts if you're deciding to do the same thing as me and take a whole piece of plywood. Okay, so that is an entire sheet of soft plywood which I've just bought from B&Q, and I asked them to cut it up for me. As you can see, I'm using my extended table, which I made recently in the Garage Workshop. I'll put a link to that video if you haven't seen it. It's worth checking out. And it does prove that if I wanted to have cut the whole lot of plywood down, which to be honest I didn't, if I did want to cut it down, then the table would be big enough. It's nice and sturdy on the back where the extension is as well. So what I've done is I've asked them to cut it into 4 sections of 22 centimetres wide, because I'm not quite sure how big I'll make the cupboard yet or what depth it'll be. And I've got this panel which is 29 centimetres wide, which is going to be the sort of out-facing panel, because imagine it's going to be like behind a door, like a locker door, and when you open the door, which will be this solid strip here, when you open the door the clamps will all be in behind it. I've taken everything off of the wall over there as well, but I have noticed that the board I've got on the wall has sort of sagged a bit, so I am going to drill and just screw that back in. But obviously when this gets attached to the wall, that will also go straight through that wood and actually into the brick behind it. So the plan essentially is to build, as I said, it's like a Billy bookcase or one of the old sort of storage units. I'm going to build it this big, obviously top and bottom, and then have different shelves on the inside, and then this will go on. Obviously that's too far apart. I've decided not to make it too big because I'm going to put the clamps in it in a slightly different way. And originally I thought about putting the clamps in this way, but if I do that, I'm not sure these are going to be deep enough. And then I thought if I lay them that way, I'll get many more clamps on, and it will give me a little bit more flexibility. Or ideally, I could do both. I could have some in that way at the top and then some way that way at the bottom. Now, if I lay this flat, you can see there is just enough room to get that clamp in and the piece of board that's behind it. Now, because this is going to be screwed to the wall, fixed to the wall, it's going to have like support bars all the way along. It's not going to be a solid piece of wood at the back. So I do have that little bit of extra space where I'm going to have a bar. So if I have one here, I've got a bit of space behind it. If I have one here, if I have one here, here and here. Now, the issue with this is this wood at the moment has just been cut sort of horizontally. It's not the right length vertically. If I try and stand this up in my garage, it won't even stand up at the moment. It's too big. And because I've got the rail from the garage door, I want this to sit underneath that rail, but I do want it to sit pretty much on the floor. It's not going to be exactly on the floor because I've already looked, and underneath the unit where it's going to go, the floor isn't straight. So the plan is to raise it literally off the floor by really only a couple of centimetres at the most, just so it's sort of offset from the floor. Now what I might do is get a piece of wood and just put a piece of wood at the bottom underneath this to sort of brace this between this and the floor. I'm not sure yet, but this is too long. So the next stage is to get all of this wood, these sides, cut down to the right size. So as I said, I think it's 2.44 long, and I've decided that I'm going to make the cupboard that goes on the wall 2 meters deep. So I just need to knock 44 centimeters, which I'll do now. So I'll set the plunge saw up and we'll take that off now. As accuracy was key to this project, I've spent a lot of time measuring, and you'll see all the way through this video me sometimes double or triple checking measurements because I wanted to make it absolutely spot on. The other thing that I did was I kept these 2 bits of wood together. I actually clamped them together so they were laid perfectly on each other, and I did a double cut with my plunge saw, which I've never done before, but I just wanted to make sure that even if they didn't meet my exact standards of being 2 meters long, which by the way they did, I wanted to have them at least both the same. I didn't want to have one piece one size and one the other. So as I did the plunge saw, great plunge saw, I think I've mentioned it lots and lots of times, but this is the first time where I've done a double cut like this, and I did notice that the plunge saw took quite a bit of oomph to get through, and as a result it just sort of burnt the edges of the wood. I'm not sure if a more powerful saw would have gone through this, but you know, you are talking 360 there. You've got, you know, 36, you 2 locked at 18, so it's quite a thick piece of wood to get through in the first place. So I just knocked the end off with a sander just to make sure it was all nice and level. But the quality of the cuts was really good. Again, no complaints. A little bit of burring at the edge, and I get that. And I was really pleased with how it came out. And when I just checked, the other pieces were roughly the same size, which was fantastic. Okay, so as you will have just seen, I've been super careful with the wood to try and make sure that I've cut it as straight as I can. This is the edge that I've got left. I've just checked with the ruler, with the tape measure, and I'm out by 1 mil towards the bottom. I mean, it's not going to matter because these are going to be cut down anyway. That's not the length, but to only be 1 mil out cutting bits that big, you can probably see it, it's sort of level there. You can see at the bottom it's a bit out. To only be out by 1 mil, I think, on such large cuts is pretty good. And obviously the end of the wood you can see is a little bit scored there. The second piece of wood that I cut, I just knocked off the end with a bit of sandpaper as I was going through. The lead got caught and it sort of burnt a bit, but you won't see any of that anyway because it's all going to be on the inside. So the next thing to do is cut these down and then put all of the pocket holes in. I think I'm going to use pocket holes. I might actually get the biscuit machine out and use a combination of pocket holes and biscuits, but this is the next thing. Cut this down to the right size so then I can actually knock the frames together and get the internal size for the brace supports that I need as well. Apologies for the video sort of jumping around a bit. I took so much footage over this 2 days. I literally could have made a 5-hour long video, but these are the struts that I'm going to put the pocket holes in. I've got a mixture of wood for this. These are sort of offcuts I had lying around. So I've got those, and I've got the bits of offcut wood, which are actually going to be the top and the bottom of the unit, and the other two are going to be sort of in between. So I just wanted to make sure they were all the same length, which they were before I broke out the pocket holes. And also I went to town a little bit with the pocket holes. I'm going to say straight up front, I put 5 pocket holes in each side, just because I'm really worried about the weight of the clamps and the weight of the unit and the fixing on the wall. So I wanted to make doubly sure, and I knew I was going to use the proper pocket hole screws for this as well. So I set up the pocket hole machine, the rig, exactly as I wanted it. So for those of you that love pocket holes, it is a feature of my channel. I've probably drilled about 9 million pocket holes by now. I laid them all out, got them all pocket holed, and then I just offered them up to just make sure everything was as level as it could be. The key thing about this whole build is quality. I wanted it to be the best thing that I'd ever made, which you'll see at the end of video 2, whether I achieve that or not. I wanted it also to reflect the fact that everything had to be precisely measured. So that's why I'm offering everything up. I'm dry joining a lot of things I offered up, put there, then took back, and I either made little alterations to them, or I sanded them, or I did some sort of different things really. But once it was in, I then measured up the clamp, and this thing that you can see me doing now is the sort of shelf that the clamp's actually going to clamp onto. Again, I was really careful here. I've got full PPE in, as you can see. I'm using 2 sticks. I was really careful about how I did that, because obviously I had the blade quite exposed. I then changed the router bit to sort of put the grooving bit in, which you'll see in a minute. I decided not to use the table saw for this, because I made a router table. I need to use it more often. I've only used it about 4 times. So I changed it to a grooving bit, which was the same size. It's 18mm, the same size I needed cut into my ledges, my shelves. So offered it up, bit too shallow. So I just made it a tiny bit deeper and fed it through. And again, I was really careful. This is just like a sort of test bit to make sure it's the right size. I was very careful here. And I kept my fingers away from that router bit as much as possible. And thank you to everyone who's picked up in my previous videos and said I need to do that. So I ran them through, and again, I had a little kink there where it sort of drops out of the circle. I did that. I don't know why I did that actually. I just sort of used this fence because the dust didn't work. You see it flew out everywhere. Then I went back and glued it. It was at this point, perhaps I should have thought about the screws that I was putting in from the back, which I then sort of did the other way round, which was a bit unfortunate, but my other shelves, I remembered that. So these shelves are going to be not just wood glued, but they've got screws coming in. You can see the screw holes there that I did off camera. So they're connected via screws and via glue, and also attached to the side via screws. You can see there's 3 pocket holes in each side. So once I had that one shelf complete, it wasn't going anywhere, the ledge wasn't going anywhere, it was completely square. I was then able to offer it up and see how it fitted, and it was at this point I sort of realised that I'm going to also need to screw it in from the top. So just where you can see the other side where all the pocket holes there, I just popped it in. I remembered to fix the first pocket hole, which actually was a good job, because by the time I butted it up, there's no way I would have been able to get in there, even with an extending bar to do it. So I put it in, just put one, just to start with, before I attached a clamp to keep it level, and then I popped the rest of the screws in, as you can see there. Okay, so I've just temporarily added these clamps to that piece of wood. Obviously nothing's fixed in place yet. And the other thing is I have got to bear in mind that I need to keep this brace free enough that I can drill through it and drill in to the wall, because this is actually going to be attached to the wall. So in a minute, I've only put a couple of screws in here. I'm just going to pop it off and drill some holes in, because obviously I won't be able to drill it in afterwards. I've got an extension bar, I can screw things into the wall, but I won't be able to drill the holes. So I need to remember to do that, pre-drill everything in this. So it's nice and flush at the moment. It's not a problem to just pop it out. I've only got one screw in there at the moment, but as you can see, there is a lot of space for the clamps. I'm toying with the idea of putting something in here, a sort of piece of wood with holes in it to rest them in, but to be honest with you, I don't actually know if I need to do that, because I've only got 6 of these larger size clamps, and I think they'll all fit in no problem. So it does give me a bit of space. Now what I'm tempted to do also is to put a shelf just underneath them, like so, before I put the next bit in, to give an extra bit of rigidity. So I'm going to have a look through the wood pile and see if I've got any 18mm wood that I can use for an additional shelf. Now obviously this is going to be covered up, it's going to have a front on it, so you're not going to see this really until you open the door on the front. But I have got some wood lying around, and I've also got some MDF, and if it comes to it, I can put a mixture of plywood and MDF in. I'm not worried about how it looks, because you're only really going to see the outside, and you only see the inside when I'm opening to get the clamps out, and even then I don't think you'll notice it. So I have got some 18mm MDF, and I've got a couple of 18mm bits of this lying around, so I'm going to see if I can make a couple more of these shelves. So next thing to do is look in the wood pile. Having been happy with how that shelf worked, I just went ahead then and knocked out the other braces, the other shelves that were going to go down the back. There was quite a few of them, and again I just ran them through, used the router table to get everything exactly right, and the grooves were nice and uniform across all of them. And then I cut these are the sort of back supports. I had some 18mm MDF, but unfortunately didn't have any straight edges on it. So first of all, I had to put some straight edges on it, which you can see me doing there. Also, I just at this point, I will point out I've changed my table saw blade. I went for a higher tooth blade. This is another Saxon blade, and it has made such a difference. Such a difference. So when I got them all to the right size, I was then able to just plop them through to their finished size. They're 29 centimeters wide. And I just ran them through once, but I noticed they were slightly off, so I just kept it set at 29. Although you can't see it here, there are tiny little bits flying off here. So when they're all the right size, I went back to the pocket holes. Yes, more Garage Workshop pocket holes for you pocket hole lovers. I went back and put them in again. I know I'm going over the top here by putting in 5 pocket holes, but again, the rigidity and the strength of these shelves and the support braces are going to be absolutely vital to this. I then just popped in and drilled in a hole in the back and screwed each of the shelves in, and you'll see from this next bit, when I connected the middle brace, that's the bit you just saw me put the pocket holes in, I attached it all through, and then I put in the bracing part, which the clamps were going to clamp into, and obviously it was going to provide the rigidity. So again, got it all hooked up nice and straight, and then plopped in the pocket hole screws and the screws from the top. And by now, I mean, I gave it a little shake. This was not going anywhere, I can assure you. It was really, really rigid. So after I'd done those two, it's just a case of getting a little bit of a rut now, and I was just moving along, doing one after the other, making sure, using the square there, that they were nice and level, which they were all the way through, and again attaching them with the pocket hole, the proper pocket hole screws that actually came with my Craig jig. So I've got quite a lot of them, and I needed them because I used quite a lot of them on this project. But again, they help keep it nice and rigid, which was exactly what I was after. Okay, so this first part is done, with the exception of just putting the bottom on it, which I'm going to do in a minute. I'm going to leave a little gap at the bottom there, as you can see, between the bottom clamp. But I just wanted to show you, just lined it up and placed a clamp on each level. Now, it does feel very sturdy, I'm not going to lie, but I have got a little bit of a concern about these shelves. So what I'm going to do is actually drill in from the side. I know it's going to leave some drill marks, but I'm going to fill those. I just want to drill in from the side. Obviously, when I turn this over to drill these bits in, I'll drill them in from the other side just to be secure. So I've got my larger F clamps there. I've got the smaller, but really these clamps are really heavy each one, which is why I've gone for a slightly bigger sort of fill down. I put in slightly longer screws, and then at the top I've got my smaller lighter clamp. So this entire side now is done, with the exception of that base plate, which I'm going to put on now. I've done and I've built out the side. One thing I have realized, which is going to be a problem, hopefully not a massive problem, but getting access to these screws here, I should have thought about that before I put this on. But having said that, this would have been more difficult to put on when the other side was on. So where I know I'm going to struggle, so for example, that one that's in the corner there's no way I'm going to get a screw there, but that just gives me a bit more room to screw in from the side, sorry, from this side down. So when the other bit of board is laying on the top, like so, when the other side is on, then I'm going to screw in from the outside. I can always fill the outside with holes, but I'm definitely going to do that. I'm just going to put 2 screws in each of these, just because I'm worried about the total amount of weight. So the entire first side here is now done. So I'm going to flip it over, lay it on top of the piece of wood that is below, and attach it after I've just attached that final bit. So I'll do that now. So I attached the bottom panel again, making sure it was square, and I was pleased there was a little bit of clearance. Now, I don't mind admitting at this next stage, I was very, very nervous about flicking this over to see A, whether it would fit, and B, whether it was level, but I shouldn't have worried. It was absolutely spot on, and that just shows the value of doing so much measuring. This is more measuring than I've done in any garage workshop project, but to be honest with you, I'm glad I did. And I was able to just hook it up, hook it all together, and I started at the bottom and worked my way through, and by the time I'd finished, it was absolutely rock solid, rigid. I was very, very pleased with how it turned out. Oh, by the way, this is my first time using the time lapse on the GoPro, which I think I'm going to use a lot more rather than speeding the footage up in editing, because it was brilliant. But as I hooked it all in, again, using the pocket hole screws, very pleased with how it turned out. Okay. So fellow woodworkers, this is where my project video would normally end, and I would normally say, please subscribe to the channel. The unit is complete, and as you can see, I've just put a clamp in. It's very, very, very sturdy. I've reinforced the sides with some screws, and I was going to leave it here just by putting that piece of wood as a hinge door on the front. But by some bizarre twist of fate, which I can only put down to extreme mind reading skills, or just a complete lack of fluke, Jason Hibbs at the Bournemouth workshop today has dropped a video pretty much doing exactly what I have done. Now, how that happened, I have no idea, but actually what Jason has done, obviously his unit is much bigger than mine. It's wall mounted like mine, but he has got a fold in, fold out part of his. So his is essentially double this size. Now I've got 2 pieces of wood that are exactly the same size as this. And I've had a look at his video. I've watched it 3 times now, and I think his idea is absolutely fantastic. So what I'm going to do is leave this video into 2 parts. If you're happy just watching this video, and as you can see the clamp unit is completely finished, it just needs to be attached to the wall, then there's no need to watch the second part. But I would like to try and attempt to do what Jason has done in his video and double the size of this area. I've got the wood, I've checked, I've got enough wood to do it, and obviously that unit, that piece of wood at the back then will become the front cover of what will essentially be a double unit. Now it will come out of the wall quite a long way, but having had a brief measurement, that doesn't worry me too much at all. But I just think I can take his idea and adapt it and incorporate it into mine, and it will then give me enough storage, fingers crossed, to have everything I want to have in my storage unit. So all of my clamps, not just these blue F clamps, all of my plastic clamps, and it will let me have these big clamps in there as well, because originally I was going to fit the door and then just put these clamps on the front. Well, I don't need to do that now. If I've got another unit that's exactly this size, I'm pretty confident that I can get everything I need in it. So if this is the end and you're not going to watch the second part, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if this is your first time. Please leave a comment in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button. If you're a regular follower, thank you so much, but please don't leave me now. Let's see if we can take and make the second bit and make this unit even bigger. I'll catch you on the next episode of the Garage Workshop. Happy woodworking, everyone.